Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Adolescent to Young Adult Info session today. My name is Kaylani Othman. I am one of the admissions counselors here in our Office of Admissions. So I recruit territories of all of Northeast Ohio, as well as the state of New York. So today, some students will be talking to you, a faculty member will be talking to you. So be sure to use that chat feature to ask any questions that you may have. There will be some opportunities at the end of the presentation for you to ask them as well. So to practice using that chat feature, say your name, where you're from, and since Thanksgiving's coming up, your favorite Thanksgiving food. But I will now pass it over to Gretchen and she will get you all started and I will turn my camera off.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. So as Kaylani said, my name is Gretchen Thomas. I'm a recruiter for the College of Education and Human Development. Just wanted to again say welcome and thank you for being here. I'm joined today with Dr. Dan Breyer and two students from the Adolescent to Young Adult Education Program. And I will also be sending you guys a follow-up email. So just make sure you're looking out for an email from me later on this week. And I will pass it off to Dr. Breyer.
Good. Thank you, Gretchen. So welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. Well, it's actually not seeing you, but you are here. So it's good to have you here. And we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the Adolescent to Young Adult Education Program. And I'll give you a little bit of background about who we are and what we do and give you an opportunity to ask questions that you might have about the program. We have a variety of different recruiting events in the fall that allow us to be able to kind of get the word out about our program. So I'll try to give you a little bit of background and see what your needs are. So the first thing I'm going to do is to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. So hopefully this will work okay. There it is. As Gretchen said, my name is Dr. Dan Breyer. I am the program coordinator for the AYA program and the middle childhood program. So if you have questions about that, that may be helpful too. Sometimes people are uncertain whether they want to go into middle childhood or AYA. I wear both of those hats, so you might have some questions that you'd want to ask about that as well at some point. A third job that I also wear the hat of is to coordinate the AYA math program. So there are the various content areas in AYA, but I oversee the math specifically. I've been doing that at BGSU for 28 years. I'm joined by two students today, Annabelle and Megan. So Annabelle, you can give them a wave there, and Megan. Annabelle is an AYA science major. She'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. She also serves as an office assistant in the AYA and MCE office. Megan Recker is an AYA math major and also a student assistant in the office. So they're going to say a few words to you here along the way, and then they'll also be available for your question and answers. So Megan, Annabelle, thanks for joining me tonight. So a few kind of general things about the program itself. Our AYA, or Adolescents to Young Adult, a lot of states refer to this as the secondary program. When I first came to BGSU many years ago, that's what it was called, the Secondary Education Program. But it was renamed because secondary got a little bit confusing when you got middle childhood and secondary, like where is the dividing line there? And so they changed it to Adolescents to Young Adult. So basically, if you are a major in this program, you are licensed to teach in any of grades 7 through 12. So that would include like a junior high position in a high school. Some of our middle schools in the state also hire these AYA majors because middle schools sometimes are grades 6, 7, 8, or 7, 8, and 9. And so because that 7, 8 is part of the teaching position, it's not unusual, excuse me, for a middle school to hire an AYA major. There are 4 AYA content areas. They include language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science. And so we'll talk about each one of those just briefly to give you the kind of the overview here of the different programs that you can choose. One of the things to be clear about here is that you can only choose one of those 4. Sometimes the question that I get asked by students who are visiting is, can I do 2 of those? Back in the dark ages, when the dinosaurs walked the earth, which is when I went to college, you could actually major in 2 of those areas. And I did. I majored in both science and math, and I'm licensed to teach both, and I've taught both in my career. You can't do that anymore because they are entirely different areas with different sets of content and expectations and so forth. So the state of Ohio only allows you to follow one of those 4 tracks. So you're either going into teaching English language arts, math, science, or social studies in general. Our program, the AYA program in general, largest producer of teacher education graduates in the state. We are consistently chosen by the various journals around the country as the top education program in the state of Ohio. And we have within our program a number of professional organizations, math, science, general, that allow students to be able to grow within particular content areas. Now, one of the hallmarks of our program is the field experience that students get. So right away in your freshman year, the first semester you're at BGSU, you're immediately put out in the field. We have courses that are intro to education, intro to teaching the content area. So in other words, an intro to teaching high school math or to teaching language arts. And those have field experiences also. So generally for most people, both semesters of your freshman year, you're out in the field right away in classrooms. That past year or so, COVID kind of blew all that up, so we haven't done all the field experiences we normally would have done, but we're all hoping and praying that we're getting back to normal here soon, and that will start to happen again, and it certainly is already for us in the spring semester. We also have opportunities for you to study abroad and to student teach in different places. So we have a relationship with Keele University near Manchester, England, where we send students every spring to have a student teaching, or not student teaching, but a study abroad experience. And then student teaching experiences are available to do your student teaching in Texas, South Carolina, or if you're from the Cleveland area, to be able to kind of stay at home and immerse yourself in a Cleveland area school. So there are lots of different opportunities there for field experiences and to get yourself in classrooms in different places throughout the 4 years. We have as that second or third bullet point that by the time you graduate, you will have spent almost 1,000 hours in the field across all 4 of your years in the program. That's very unique to BGSU. So one of our content areas is mathematics. As I said earlier, that's the area that I actually oversee within the AYA area. So I'm what was called the content coordinator for math. My email address is there. You feel free to contact me anytime. In the math area, the requirement is students take about 43 or 44 hours of mathematics and mathematics education. So it includes taking classes in calculus and probability and statistics and algebra and geometry and so forth. I mentioned earlier that Megan, who's one of our students who's with us today, is an integrated math major. So Megan, I'll turn it over to you for a minute to give us a few of your thoughts.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name is Megan. I'm currently a sophomore in the AYA math program. So I can't really give you a whole perspective of like the junior, senior year, but I can talk a little bit about the first couple of years. And one thing I really want to highlight is how special our faculty is here in the math program. You can really tell that they care about not just your well-being as a student, but that you are really sucking in as much information as you can to become the best teacher you can be. I've had so many great teachers in this program. And one thing I really enjoy about the program here at BG is we have these 2740 level classes. So those classes are going to teach you a lot about how specifically to teach math and a lot of the concepts behind the things you've learned previously. And it helps you just see all of that in a different light and really know everything there is to know about all kinds of subjects through like number theories and algebra and all kinds of things like that. And it really just helps you become a really solid professional in the math field. And I've had some of my favorite teachers in those couple of classes as well. So there is a 2740 class that you would take in the spring of your freshman year. And then there are 2 others. There'd be 2741 and 2742, which would be in the fall and spring of your sophomore year. I'm currently in the 2741 class, and that is by far one of my favorite classes I have ever had in my entire life. So highly recommend being a math major. It's super fun. And our professional organization, we have Bowling Green Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So for those 2740 level classes, you're going to have a professional development requirement that requires you to go to some different meetings or have different development experiences to really help yourself grow as a professional in the math field. And usually for BGCTM, we have about 2 to 3 meetings throughout the semester. So that helps you get that professional development requirement filled. And it also really helps you to grow as a math teacher. And we don't cover just like content teaching and stuff like that. There's all kinds of things like classroom management, inclusivity, all kinds of different subjects we cover in BGCTM. And your first couple of years, I'll talk about that for just a second. So your freshman year, you're probably going to take a lot more of your content courses. So for me, I had quite a few CCP credits coming into college. So I was able to skip like college algebra and Calc 1, and I jumped straight into Calc 2, and I had a couple different math courses in the fall and spring of my freshman year. So that was when I was really like math content heavy as opposed to my teaching specialty. So that's probably what your first couple years are going to look like, where you're going to have more math classes as opposed to more teaching classes. But as you go up through your years at BG, you're going to gradually transition into more of the teaching specialty classes. And I think that's all I have to say about the math program.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Yeah, we do have it's kind of developmental. Each of the programs is that way. It starts off with a little bit of field experience, a lot of content, and then as time goes on, the content pulls back and the field experience and methods classes ramp up. And so that's by design of the programs. And that is also certainly the case in the science area. So our content coordinator in science is Dr. Lena Duran. And you have choices if you go into science. There's 3 different ways you can play it. You think of there being earth science, life science, chemistry, and physics. And in those 4 areas, you can get an integrated degree, which prepares you to teach all 4 or any science class in grades 7 through 12. Or you can choose a single field, say life science only or chemistry only, or you can do a dual field, or you could be, chemistry and physics or something like that. So you have lots of choices there within that program. And so that the content specialty hours depends on whether you single field, dual field, or integrated. And so Annabelle is our science education major who's with us today. And so Annabelle, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Yeah, just like Dr. Breyer said, first of all, I'm Annabelle. I'm a junior in science education. I'm in life and earth science. So just like Dr. Breyer said, there are 4 fields of science: life, earth, chem, and physics. And you can choose 1, 2, or all 4. And if you choose all 4, that's a 5-year degree, but it also makes you super marketable, as you'd be able to teach any science in grades 7 through 12. I chose to do a dual field because I didn't want to go to school for 5 years, honestly, but I could go back and maybe get licensed in chem and physics as well. But I'm more passionate about life and earth science. So what that looks like for me, I'll be able to teach biology, anatomy, astronomy, geology, marine biology, ecology, environmental science, all of the best things ever, I think. But we also have a student professional organization called BGSEC. And this is like it says, a student-led organization where we really focus on providing professional development and how to make you become a better science teacher. So in the past, we have helped with like events like STEM in the Park. We've gone to an NSTA, like the National Teachers of Science organization. We went to that conference. And in a few weeks, we'll be meeting with some high school teachers so we can get advice from them and have like a panel. So it's really just an organization to help you become a better teacher. There is no other school like Bowling Green for science education. In most schools, you have to get a major in, like, say you wanted to be a bio teacher, you'd have to major in biology and then get a license in education. But in the program at BG, you actually get your license through the program, which is what really appealed to me, is because there's no other place that has a science education major. So you get licensed right through it, and you're also in the College of Education and Human Development, which appealed to me more as I'm more passionate about education. And honestly, that is definitely the biggest reason I chose to come here. So if you have any like specific questions about like what it looks like to be a science education major, you can direct message me or type them in the chat. But I really love it here. It, like Megan said, it's very content focused in the first few years. And then as you get older, it gets more into education realm. So I'll be in the classroom a lot more very soon. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Annabelle. A third area is social studies. Dr. Nancy Patterson is the content coordinator there. Social studies incorporates all of the social studies. That's why it's called integrated. So you think of anything that's social studies related, whether that be history, political science, economics, geography, any of the social sciences are all part of that same major. So you take classes in lots of different areas, and in the process, you're taking 49 hours of the teaching specialty, but you're also taking 15 hours in history or political science in addition, or as part of really that program. So when you graduate with a degree in integrated social studies education, you also by default have a minor in either history or in political science. So sometimes we'll have people come forward and say, hey, I really want to be a history teacher. Do you have a history major? Well, kind of, but history is incorporated, it's folded into the integrated social studies. It's one of the social studies. Again, back in the days when I was in college, you could major in history education and get licensed to teach history. We don't do that anymore in Ohio. You get licensed to teach all of the social studies that would include history if that's your interest. But if that is your interest, you can also then choose that as your minor area and pile up additional classes in that program. There is no specific professional organization for social studies alone yet, although there's been much discussion about that in the last year or two. But there is what is called the AYAA, which is the AYA Association. It's a professional organization that is for anyone who is in the AYA fields. And so somebody who is in social studies who wants to get involved in a professional organization, there's not one specific like there is for math or science, but there is a general professional organization there that you can belong to. In addition, we have integrated language arts. And again, the same thing. If you're majoring in integrated language arts, the assumption is that you're going to be licensed to teach anything in the language arts. So that could be an English class, writing, creative writing, composition, literature, some type of communication course, or a public speaking class, or British literature, anything that falls under that broad category of the language arts, you would be licensed to teach. So much like the social studies major, if you major in this, you not only get licensed to teach grades 7 through 12 language arts, but also you pick up a minor by default in English, because that's a core of the classes that you take. So it's 30 hours in the teaching specialty and that 15-hour minor. The content coordinator is Dr. Joanna Weaver, and I've put her email address in the PowerPoint. And again, the professional organization, there's not one specifically for language arts, but there is the general AYAA that incorporates those who are in language arts education. So 4 different content coordinators, 4 different content areas of the social studies that you can choose to go into. Both Megan and Annabelle mentioned the idea of the field experiences that we have. And so this is kind of the way that the program is laid out. If you think of it, we kind of framed each of the 4 years under a question. So when you go into your freshman year in the AYA program, the question is, what does it mean to be a teacher? So we take classes, intro to education, looking at the broad picture of what we're trying to accomplish with American education. You take a class in introduction to teaching science or math or language arts or social studies. What does it mean to be a social studies teacher? And we send you out into the field, into a social studies classroom, thinking about that. So it's really that broad look at what education is all about and what teachers do. If nothing else, to help you discern, am I in the right field? Am I doing the thing that I'm really passionate about? So if I study that in my classes and I go out in the field, it will help me to decide whether this is really what I want to do. By your second year, the focus becomes, who are my students? Really looking at not just the content, but who you're going to be teaching. Because we always say that if you're going to be a good math teacher, it's not good enough just to know math. A lot of people know about math. The question is, how well do you know your students who are learning the math? What makes them tick? How to motivate them? What we do in the classroom, we have students who have special needs. What motivates our students? So we really take in that second year a block of courses really that focuses on our students that we teach. How do they learn? What makes them tick? And how do I plan in a way that's really going to meet the needs of all of those students? By the time you get to your third year, the focus question becomes, so how do I actually do the teaching so that all those students can learn? You know, the second year I learned about all those different kinds of students I'll have in my classes. So what does the lesson planning process look like? And what does the teaching look like? And so we actually have a block of classes that you take in the spring of your third year, where you look specifically at lesson planning and preparing and organizing to go out into the field. And it has a lot of field experience, 60 hours of field experience out there to practice some of those things you're looking at. And really the rubber hits the road then in your fourth year. Who am I as a teacher? That's when you do that big block of methods classes, kind of what we call block 2. The spring of junior year is block 1, and the fall of your senior year is block 2, where you have a full slate of different methods classes looking at assessment in the schools and so forth. And you spend a lot of time in the field, about 6 weeks in the field full time. And that prepares you for student teaching in the spring semester. You do your student teaching in the spring for a full 14 weeks, full-time teacher in the field, learning firsthand how to do the planning and the assessing on all the things that you do. So as we mentioned before, it's a developmental program where each year builds on the theme of the previous year. And you have these professional organizations and learning communities to support you. So we mentioned already the AYAA. We have something called the Peer Mentor Connections that is open to AYA education majors. The BGCTM, Megan mentioned, it's the Bowling Green Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Annabelle talked about BGSEC, which is the Bowling Green Science Education Council. We have a learning community called ECHO that focuses specifically on urban education. It's open to any education major. And then we have a theme community in EDHD as well that is open to all education majors. So lots of opportunities there for you to gather with people with similar interests that you have, whether that be urban education or teaching math or whatever, that you have opportunities to grow beyond just what we're doing in the classroom as well. We regularly post things to social media about what's going on in our programs and things that are coming up. I would recommend that you do that. We have a Twitter account, the BGSU_AYAMCE, and we have a Twitter account as well, AYAMCE program. We put AYA and MCE, middle childhood, together in those two accounts because, again, it's not unusual for them to sort of jump back and forth between those two programs. So we want to try to keep you posted on both. So we would encourage you to follow us on Twitter or Instagram so that you can pick up on our posts as we make them. So at this point, I'd like to kind of pause and open it back up here to questions that you might have. And a question that maybe I can answer or one that Megan or Annabelle can answer. And I would invite you to either put those questions in the chat window, or if you want to key your mic and just ask the question live, we're happy to address that too. Anything that's on your mind. I will tell you, this is not the time to be shy. And if you got any questions at all, you can be guaranteed that you're probably one of 5 people who are all thinking about the same question. So whatever you want to ask, we're here. Okay, so Emma asked how our program compares to other universities. I think that's a fair question. I have quite a bit of history of that because I've been at BGSU for 31 years, 28 years full-time, and I've interfaced with other universities around the state. You're going to find that there is a core of things that every university in the state does, right? I mean, everybody, if you're going to be a AYA social studies major, you're going to take classes in history and geography and political science and so forth, no matter where you go. So the bigger question becomes, what is unique to BGSU that makes us different? And what I would say is, number one is the field experiences, the idea that we're putting you in the field throughout all 4 years. Some institutions wait until their junior or senior year to put you in the field. Some institutions have field experience right away freshman year, but nothing else until junior or senior year. The fact that our program is field experience centric is important. In other words, that is the core of what we do, and you are in the field every single year for 4 years. That is a big difference. Another thing that we do, and I believe that Annabelle mentioned it, and that is that each of these programs are education specific programs. So sometimes what I have found is that other institutions in the state will tell prospective students, hey, if you come here, you can get a degree in math and you can be licensed to teach. And that's true. But what we do at BGSU is we give you a degree, you earn a degree in math education. So you get all of the mathematics that any math major would be taking at any other institution and education at the same time. So it's not an add-on. It's not, let's study the math and then let's look at education. It is looking at math education. And so that's why when Megan talked about that, those 2,700, that sequence of classes, 2740, 2741, 2742, that's a 3-course sequence that is designed specifically for people in math education to think for 3 semesters in a row about what math teachers do and how their content is important in terms of how to teach students. Nobody else in the state of Ohio does it that way. Nobody. So this idea of orienting our program specifically toward education and not seeing it as you'll take a bunch of science classes and then you'll take a couple of education classes and you're done. The idea is that science and education are addressed through our classes and our professional development opportunities throughout the 4 years. So I think that Megan and Annabelle both spoke to that to some degree. I don't know if either of the two of you wanted to add anything to that. Is that pretty much the way that you saw it you're looking?
Yeah, when I remember when I was looking at schools and I knew that I wanted to be a science teacher, a lot of them, none of them had science education, none of them. And so it was very frustrating because if you just major in like biology and then get a license in education, you're really cutting yourself off from a lot of different opportunities. Like I will now be able to teach like double the amount of classes because of BG. And without that, also Bowling Green's in a great area too. Like you get, because it's very close to Toledo. So like your field experience is very like, very varied. That sounds so weird, but it's like you can do like urban, rural, public, private, career tech. Like there's a lot of different like types of schools in this area too. So it's also very good for that. Like if you're not sure like where you want to teach or like what you want to teach. So I would also definitely recommend that.
Thanks, Annabelle. Maddie's question here about studying also something agriculture related and teaching an ag class. That's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to, because I know that the ag classes do not fall specifically under one of the 4 AYA areas. So I'm not familiar with what the licensure is to be able to teach that class. And I don't know if Megan or Annabelle, have you run into that at all? Okay. So we may have to dig for that one a little bit further because I'm really not sure since it's not one of the AYA areas. I do know that there are some areas that people can teach in that are not necessarily a specific licensure area or that you can work in. So for example, One of the minors you can get at BGSU, which also is unique to BGSU, by the way, we're the first in the state to do it, is a minor in athletic coaching. So you take classes on leadership and how to coach a team, and you do a practicum experience and so forth, and you pick up a minor in coaching. But you technically don't have to have a license to be a coach, but it just helps you to have that in your background. So there are various things like that. Another good example could be that some of our AYA students will minor, say, in Spanish. Well, you do have to have a license to teach Spanish. You would major in a world language in Spanish. But if you have that background, you may be able to work with ESL type of students that have that as their background to be able to speak their language and so forth. You're not going to get a license to teach Spanish, but you certainly would be in a pivotal place to help students where Spanish is their primary language. So it could well be that ag is handled that way, that there is not a specific license, and there may be. But if there is, I'm not familiar with it because that's outside of our 4 AYA areas that I oversee.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dr. B, because like I think it depends on the school, like what they want of you, like that you would be hired at. Because like, for example, we just had like an ag teacher who got licensed to like in kindergarten education, like to be a kindergarten teacher, but he ended up being an ag teacher because he like had experience in the field, like with agriculture and stuff. So I feel like it kind of depends on like what school you're going to apply to, but it can't hurt to minor in it if that's something that you're interested in.
Exactly. Can never take the classes away from you, you know. Gabriella asks a great question. How likely are you to become employed, and does BG help with job placement? So the answer to the second question is yes, BGSU definitely helps in a lot of different ways. An example would be that when you are in your 4th year, and you do that block 2 of methods in the fall, and then you do your student teaching in the spring. We have things built right into that program that helps you to be able to get jobs. So for example, we have people from the Career Center that will come and speak about keeping your, writing and maintaining a resume, writing a cover letter. We have mock interviews that we build into the student teaching semester in a seminar so that people get a chance to practice doing job interviews. So there is considerable exposure to that, and every spring the college or the university holds a job fair, and there's a teacher job fair where there are recruiters that come in from schools all over Ohio and a number of other states where you can interview and get information about teaching in a variety of different places. So we do a lot, actually, particularly during the senior year to help you prepare for that. The job placement rate is very good depending on the content area you go into. So it's no secret, folks, math and science are the hot areas to go into if you're looking for jobs. It's not that you can't get a job in language arts and social studies, because you can. And actually right now, what we're finding is in this COVID world that we're pulling ourselves out of, teaching positions are becoming very plentiful across the board, much more likely to get hired today than you would have been able to get, say, 3 years ago. Because a lot of people, as you've read in the news, are saying, well, I've been teaching for long enough now, and we're in the middle of the pandemic, I might as well just retire and move on, or whatever. And so there have been a lot of shifting kind of happening in the market. But the state of Ohio has had a distinct published shortage of teachers of math, science, and math, science, and special education for several years running. And those are the biggest areas. So if you went into AYA science or an AYA math, you've got you're putting yourself in the best position to get a job post-graduation. However, having said that, yes, we do have a high placement rate in the other areas too. Right now, the hardest job to get of all of the AYA areas would probably be social studies. Because more people go into social studies than any of the 4 AYA areas, not only at BGSU, but around the rest of the state. It's a little bit more popular than the other areas. Well, the area that has the most people going into it has the most people looking for jobs, and that drives down the likelihood of getting the job that you want. A good teacher, there's always a job for, but some areas are a little bit more popular than others. And the chances of you getting that math job would be considerably higher than the chances of getting the social studies job that you want. Having said that, if that's your passion and you're going to be good at it and you're going to study and do your best, you'll get a job in anything that you go into, because teachers are always in demand in Ohio and beyond. You're welcome. Anyone else have any other questions you want to either ask us with your microphone or put in the chat window? It's fun to hear what you're thinking. Okay, well, I think I will turn it back over to Gretchen and Kehlani.
Actually, I do have a question for the students though. So can you just tell everyone in the Zoom room right now, why teaching? Why did you, so you said that you came to BGSU for teaching, right? So can you tell these prospective students who, obviously have some interest in the AYA field, what is just like, what made you want to be a teacher overall, not just AYA, not just like their specialization in math or science, but what like gives you that drive to be a teacher every day and to want to pursue that career after you graduate from BGSU?
I can go first. I love this question. Thank you so much for asking it. So growing up, I kind of struggled in school, like not that I was like a bad student or anything. I just felt like I had to work hard to get good grades. Like it didn't come easy to me, like my sister or like other people in my class. I thought it was hard. And so I really relied on my teachers to help me. And I would go to like their classrooms after school, and I really relied heavily on that. Also, both of my parents are teachers, so it was kind of something I was like surrounded with my whole life. And I also taught gymnastics to little like middle schoolers. And that was quite an experience for me. Just like being able to have a job where you develop a personal relationship with someone, and like your attitude and your actions is what changes someone like that. That's not even work. That's amazing. Like I am so lucky to have a job that exists that I can be that change for someone. And I had so many great role models in my life, and I feel like it's my duty to work hard and be that for somebody else, if that helps.
Yeah, I'm definitely along those same lines too. Like I used to be so quiet when I was in like junior high, early high school, until I had like one of the greatest math teachers I've ever had. And he just helped me to become more confident in myself too, like outside of math, even because like I've always been good at math, but he kind of helped me. I don't know. It's kind of weird to say, but yeah, it's like you really have the power to change somebody's life. And I just think that is so awesome, because outside of the content, like you really play a huge role in shaping a kid's life. And I just think it's so neat to be like have the opportunity to be such a role model for kids. And just because like more and more now we're seeing in society that so many kids don't have that, and they need some sort of positive adult in their life. And to me, that is just so appealing that I can be the one to help a student kind of like break out of whatever situation is holding them down and really succeed as an adult. So I just think that is super cool for me. And like Annabelle said, like she said, both her parents are teachers, both my parents are teachers too. So that's kind of how I got into it. But just seeing all of the positive teaching role models I've had throughout my education career has really helped me solidify, like, I want to be like them. I see such a huge role that they play, and I want to share in that.
Great. Thank you so much for your insight. I always like asking that question because I always like hearing the answers, and they're always so different. So thank you for that. But that's all I have. And if anyone does have any more questions, feel free to unmute yourselves or put in the chat. But I'll pass it over to Gretchen to see if she has anything else left.
All right, the only thing that I have to say is I will be sending all of you a follow-up email with some more information on the program and a recording of the Zoom session. But I'm going to put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me, email me any questions, comments, concerns that you have about any part of this process. Feel free to shoot me an email or reply to the one that I'll be sending you by the end of this week.
One more thing that I wanted to say, just before we go here, because I know the question didn't come up, but it may be in your mind, is about the middle childhood and the difference. Because I know a lot of times people are discerning between those two programs. And just so you're aware that the middle childhood program licenses you to teach grades 4 through 9. So grades 7, 8, and 9 overlap middle childhood and AYA. So sometimes if people have passion to teach like 7th and 8th grade, they try to decide between one program versus the other. And the big difference between the two, not only is the licensure band, but if you go middle childhood route, you choose 2 of the 4 content areas that you concentrate in. And so you would be, say, math and science, or language arts and math, or whatever. You choose any 2 of those 4 areas. So the program looks really different in that regard in terms of the content you take and so forth. But one of the things you do want to think about is what grade level are you most interested in teaching, because that will determine which program you go into.
Thank you. And there is a middle childhood info session sometime this week. I believe it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock.
Yes, tomorrow evening. So if you are interested in middle childhood, feel free to come to that and learn more about that program as well. But if that is all the questions that we have, thank you all for coming. And just keep an eye out on your email for that follow-up email. Then you are all free to go. It is, yep. Have a good night, everyone.